Greetings, my name is Dave Fletcher, and I'm a cataloger and historian here at Thomaston Place Auction Galleries in Thomaston, Maine. We're gearing up for our military and sporting arms auction entitled A Blast from the Past, featuring many historical items dating from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War and as recently as World War II. Join me and our firearms specialist and consignments associate Zebulon Casperson as we explore some highlights and personal favorites in this special auction. This auction offers a live, in-person audience experience, as well as options for people to bid online or via absentee or phone bidding. We offer previews at our gallery from October 3rd to October 6th, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Blast from the Past auction will commence at 10 a.m. Friday, October 7th. We hope to see you for this auction. In order of interest and or value, the following items will be in our Blast from the Past sale. The most remarkable Civil War story, handwritten on two sides of a single sheet, is the account of Confederate Captain Daniel N. Walker of the 13th Virginia Battery of Artillery. Written in 1885 and published in 1892 in a much shortened and diluted form, this is his detailed and graphic account of the Battle of the Crater at Petersburg, Virginia, the last line of defense leading into Richmond, their capital. Captain Walker was in the trenches when the explosion took place and begins his account with that event. Unfortunately, the follow-up to the explosion, which obliterated a portion of their line between two batteries of artillery and opened up the line of defenses behind them, was followed up instead by our troops gathering in the bottom of the crater, many of them being colored troops, which helped to raise the ire of the Confederate soldiers that were facing them, with all the Union soldiers massed, hundreds and hundreds of them, in the bottom of this crater instead of going around it, because there was a Confederate battery on each side of it, one of which was commanded by Walker. His account begins, "The impression produced upon my mind by and at the crater fight has remained unchanged to this day, 21 years later, and that is that the defeat of the enemy on this occasion, and this defeat was signal, was due in main to the artillery and to the engineer who arranged the position of the guns and mortar in anticipation of the conflict. Awakened at dawn by the explosion of the heavy cannonading which followed it, it was soon ascertained that the enemy was in possession of our lines at the Pegasus Battery, since known as the Crater." So the Pegasus Battery was the center battery, which was obliterated by the explosion. The two batteries on either side were the Auchi Battery and Davidson's Battery. And Davidson Battery was taken over because their crew was taken over by the captain himself and a crew that he mustered up. He describes the fight in detail in and around the crater and the location of their batteries and their horse camp and ultimate retreat after they eliminated the Union threat. Probably the most amazing document that we have, though, is the appointment by Pennsylvania Governor Mifflin, the man that eventually became his replacement, McKean, as Chief Justice in 1794. In a confluence of history in Pennsylvania, the man who was the second president of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania after Benjamin Franklin is here appointing the man as Chief Justice who ultimately will become the second governor of the state. Now, it's common for an appointment to have the signature of the man who's making the appointment, obviously, but attached to the back of this is a completely handwritten draft that has McKean's signature accepting the draft as being accurate. So on the same document, you have the autograph of both of these men. In a state that is proud of its history, this document should definitely be returned to the Capitol if possible, but it's up here for sale. Other amazing things that come, and these are all local sources, is the incredibly rare September 1914 French broadside published calling for the taxis of Paris to take the troops to the Marne and stop the Huns' invasion of France. They're within striking distance of Paris, and the army has no way to get the troops to the front, so they call up the taxis of Paris. Each takes 6 men with their weapons, and they drive to the front line and drop them off and go back and forth in these ancient, barely running taxis and get the troops to the front and stop the Germans' assault. Pivotal moment in history, and this is one of the few broadsides that survived that was printed by Gallienne for the call for the taxis to run the troops to the front. We have many autographed letters from Lafayette. There's a military order signed by William IV of England. There's Confederate pass with an oath of allegiance on the back. There's a Robert E. Lee signed calling card. There's a letter home from a soldier in the Massachusetts 22nd Division shortly after Fredericksburg, where we took an incredible drubbing. Bits of fabric from both the Capitol building in Richmond when it fell and from the assault on Fort Sumter, which began the war. The piece from Fort Sumter has provenance from General Abner Doubleday, who is credited with the creation of baseball. We have a collection of prints and autographs of General McClellan, a collection of buckles and buttons from the CSA and the USA, medals, insignia, a lifetime collection of books on Abraham Lincoln, range medals from Creedmoor Rifle Range in Long Island, which was the birthplace of the NRA, fragments of shells, fragments of items found at Gettysburg, 2 World War II United States Army Air Force short snorters, one from the Pacific Theater of Operations and the second from a B-24 crew in the Mediterranean. What the short snorter was a collection of bills of currency from the area where the pilots served. They were almost exclusively for members of bomber crews. And if you walked into a bar, being a cocky flyer, you would shout out, "Short snorter," and everybody had to hold theirs up to show. So these would be taped together, and the longer the short snorter was, the more stations more countries you had been in, the more respected you were. But if you had a short snorter that had 1 bill or 2 bills taped together, you had to buy a round for all the other guys in the place. They then would contribute to your short snorter by giving you bills from other countries where they had been, and it became this swapping thing. Everybody would sign off on the back of them, so you ended up with like these 12-foot long things that these pilots would roll up and carry in their pocket for good luck when they went on these deadly missions, half of which they never came back from. So these signatures on the back would be the complete crew from a bomber, and sometimes you'll find notations on them that indicate what happened to the actual crew members. Like the one that we have from the Mediterranean, the captain of the first group signed on the back of the first bill is indicated as having been killed in February of 1945, which is so close to the end. Anytime that anything like this survives on paper, I'm just amazed. And we'll just try and keep you interested with these stories.